He's that guy, you know. He's that guy in that show. That guy in that show.
Oh, yeah, that guy in that show. Well, this week's that guy in that show is John Saxon.
John Saxon was born in Brooklyn as Carmine Orisho on August 5th, 1936, and he lived until July 25th, 2020. And a couple things I didn't know about him. He studied acting at the Stellar Adler Studio. He had a lot of success young. He was in a lot of teen movies and some European ones too. He preferred the roles he was getting in European movies, so went to Europe and made a bunch of them. Now, if you're not familiar off the top of your head with John Saxon, he's kind of the co-good guy with Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon. And he just established himself as a terrific actor with great physicality. And he could play a good guy or he can play a bad guy with equal effectiveness. He was in a lot of great stuff that he just turns up in all kinds of things and he's always good. What are some of the things that you really like him in, Chris?
You know, I was a little too young to see Enter the Dragon when it first came out, but I did catch it later in the 70s, and I probably caught him there around the same time I saw him in an episode of Wonder Woman, which we'll talk about, called The Feminine Mystique, which was a two-parter where he played a Nazi captain. Can't not mention Nightmare on Elm Street, where he popped up in that. And just whenever he appeared, to me, he sort of lended a little bit of gravitas to his work. You know, some shows, list guest stars. To me, I always thought John Saxon was like, a special guest star. I think this guy really, really lent himself to elevating the material that he was given. And I don't know if I like him more as a good guy or a bad guy. He did a lot of both, and that was really, really cool. As a kid growing up too, I think he was in one of the $6 Million episodes with Bigfoot. I think he was in Return of Bigfoot, if I'm not mistaken. And I just think, how classic does it get? Where you see Saxon appear in the 70s shows that you were really watching at the time. $6 Million Man, Wonder Woman, Hawaii Five-0. He was a presence there. And it was like whenever he popped up, I knew I was in for a treat. He was going to deliver a decent, solid performance.
Yeah, definitely. He was in like you said, the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman. He was in Time Tunnel. He played Marco Polo in an episode of Time Tunnel. Tons of horror. He did Tenebrae, Nightmare on Elm Street, lots of TV, Fantasy Island, Starsky and Hutch. He just was in so much. But one thing that I really, really dug him in was a movie called Black Christmas, which is a 74 horror film. Great movie about a creepy guy hiding in a sorority house and killing the co-eds. It had Olivia Hussey was the main character. It had Margot Kidder in it. A bunch of other actors that you'd probably recognize. And Saxon plays the town cop that actually has some skills. He's a little better cop than most horror movies had. Ultimately, not good enough. He turns out to be relatively ineffective, but at least he tried. But he played a, very compelling character. He was also, action films, Westerns. He was in Radon and Tebby and Joe Kidd. He just loved to work. He was in a ton of things. But, Chris, we have to talk about the Wonder Woman episode.
Yes, we do. He just plays a villain with such nastiness. He's proud to be a Nazi. I like the fact that I think there's a scene in the second part of the two-parter where his plan goes bad, and then all of a sudden he's got the lasso around him. And some people, when they are lasso, they immediately, give up the information. But you could sense Saxon is trying to struggle with holding the truth, but he's yet compelled to. At least he put some flavor on it. And I like the fact that some actors, the directors really never gave an actor any direction. It's seemingly with someone under the effect of the magic lasso. But at least Saxon sells it. And for that, I really, really applaud him for that. He's just really trying to resist. And I thought that was a classic episode. And a perfect baddie for that series. And, I just really like him. Some people say, chewing the scenery, for everything like that. But I have to give props to Saxon. I just thought he was a great, nasty Nazi villain on that two-part episode.
Yeah, I agree. Now that's, it is an episode. It's a two-part episode. It's got Deborah Winger in it as Wonder Girl, and John Saxon, and there's a portion of it set on Paradise Island, and it's a little we definitely hear the criticisms of this episode. The Amazons aren't very Amazon-like, like when they face up against the Nazis. It's a little silly, But, it's Wonder Woman. You got to set it up so Linda Carter can save the day at the end.
Yeah, I think we talked about it in the past. I can't recall how the subject came up, but yeah, just they're rather playing Jacks on the Bridge. They think the Nazis are kind of cute. Hey, we don't have any guys on the island. Let's get to know them instead of let's we be friends. It doesn't work, and they really don't put much up a fight. I think they lob some sleeping gas bombs at them, and they almost collapse before they even hit the ground. Just like really, this was the fight. They took them out in a matter of seconds. It's kind of one of the pain points of the episode, but Saxon, like I say, he elevates the material. I think he plays well off of Cloris Leachman, who plays Queen Hippolyta for that particular episode. No, it's Carolyn Jones. I take that back.
Jones, yeah.
Carolyn Jones, yeah. Cloris was
so
was Hippolyta in the pilot. Pardon me. Yeah. Carolyn Jones, and they play well off of each other like that. And I think there's even a little bit where when Winger realizes that she's being held captive by a Nazi, he kind of clicks his heels a little bit. I don't even think that was in the direction, but he does this little heel click and a little half bow, as if he takes pride in his villainship, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's really funny him as a villain because he kind of looks like a nice guy, friendly guy, but he's such a vicious bad guy. But a little smiley, not he doesn't need to yell and scream and threaten, and he just is like, yeah, I'm gonna get you, and you believe him because he looks like he will.
Yeah, and Professor, I'm going to drift off topic a little bit though, but I'm just going over the list of credits that he's done from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and just the TV shows. We're kind of like a who's who of just what people were watching back then. He did a Bonanza, an Ironside, Night Gallery, Kung Fu, Streets of San Francisco, The Rookies. He was in a Banachek episode, Mary Tyler Moore, Petrocelli, The Rockford Files, Starsky and Hutch. Quincy, he did a Quincy, and then Fantasy Island, Vegas, Dynasty. Now we're in the 80s. Falcon Crest, Scarecrow, and Mrs. King, The A-Team, Magnum PI, Murder She Wrote. Holy cow! I mean, just
everything
that was being watched, by America and by myself. You always got to see John Saxon pop up, and how incredible is that?
Yeah, and he's a terrific actor, and for all of the TV, and you look at Fantasy Island, Starsky and Hutch. This is a guy that went to Stellar Adler. He knew how to act, and he just, like you said, with the little click of the heels, it's just he was just an actor, and he just had those skills and impulses, and you always believed him. He always elevated the work, as you say, and you're totally right about that.
Yeah, and Professor, you mentioned Joe Kidd. That's another movie I totally I fell asleep on. Oh yeah, he was in Joe Kidd too. Holy cow, I'm going to have to watch that again. I just want to see it. I'm trying to think internally. I can't decide if I liked him or if he was more effective to my mind as a villain or as the nice guy, because he did them both so well. But when I think of Wonder Woman, I think of him as the villain. I think he really nailed that. He played a conniver on an episode of Hawaii Five-0, which was really, really good. And I don't see it pop up in syndication because it was a later episode of the show. But he really played that off well. I think I like him more as a villain than as the good guy, but I'm not sure. You could probably ask me again in 2 minutes. I'll probably change my mind. But Professor, are you leaning more one way or the other? Or you like him as both?
I think my favorite performance of his is in Black Christmas, where he plays this cop, and he's a good cop, but there's a lot going on in the police station, with the personalities of the different police. And, while he's mostly a good guy, he also, he's a cop in a horror movie. You've got to convince him. So he plays a very complex character. So I think that was my favorite performance of his. So check out Black Christmas if you haven't seen it yet.
Good one. And Professor, I you asked me, I got to ask you, do you recall when you first saw Enter the Dragon?
It was probably the same as you. I was a little too young to catch it when it first came out. Wasn't really into probably the kung fu movies and all the martial arts movies in the 70s. It wasn't until the 80s that I started, appreciating those films. So I think it was probably in the early mid 80s that I first saw Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, and what a film to be in too. Bruce Lee and the whole cast. Oh my gosh, I wonder if he knew what he was involved with at the time too, just to be involved in that. And it just, to say you were in that and all those other movies and TV shows that we listed, what a fantastic career.
Yes, that he was quite an actor, and definitely don't sleep on his stuff. And if you're, floating around some of those channels that show reruns of old shows, keep an eye out for him, because that's going to be one of the best episodes of that series, whatever it is.
Yeah, always in my pop culture consciousness, ever since I was born up until my mid 30s. He was there, probably even later beyond. If I do a closer introspection, a fine, talented actor. Yes,
so. John Saxon is today's that guy in that show.
He's that guy, He's that guy in the show. That guy in the show.
Well, let's catch up on some comments from our past episodes. We recently spoke of Return of the Vampire, and we heard from Varnit9, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and the comment goes as follows: this story would have made a great Paul Naschy vehicle. Wow, thank you so much.
I have to watch more Paul Naschy movies.
Yes,
I
do too.
Many, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that suggestion. I really appreciate that. We've also recently looked at the Twilight Zone episode Back There. We heard from Odysseus Rex 5908. And 1885, I think you're off by about 20 years. Oopsie.
Yeah. I probably did that.
No fault. It's okay, Prof. No worries there.
Yeah.
We know what you meant. Cat Victory chimed in. Anybody interested in time travel can meet me right there last Wednesday. But in the meantime, join myself and Professor Frenzy for a great episode of Frenzy Faves. Always fun and entertaining. Thank you so much, Cat Victory.
Oh, cat.
We recently looked at the film Vampire Circus, and we heard from Jay Potter 2086, and he says it's a long way from PG to R back in the day. And Prof, you sure alluded to that, and ain't that the truth?
Yeah, it really is. PG was so broad, and R was just absolutely like, no, you as a kid, absolutely not, can't go to see an R movie. I was seeing Annie Hall, which was a PG movie, when I was, I don't know, 12 or 13 or 14 or something like that. So yeah, it was a different time.
Yep, bring back some memories, Prof. Well, Prof, we also spotlighted that guy, and this was William Smith, a personal favorite of one of yourself and mine. We got a comment from David_F579, who chimed in with this. What a great choice for a video. He was an amazing presence on screen and a superb multi-talent off screen. I, too, first remember his menacing presence on Rich Man, Poor Man. He was seriously considered for the title role of Kung Fu, the TV show, but producers thought he was far too menacing to be believed as a mild-mannered monk. I had no idea, so thank you, David. I appreciate that fact.
Yeah.
Also, we had the famous on-screen fight with Rod Taylor, which transitioned into a real one. Holy cow. Taylor suffered a broken nose and Smith some bruised ribs. Anyway, thanks for the video. Hope this comment helps a little with the YouTube algorithm. Well, thank you so much, David. I sincerely appreciate that.
That's awesome. Thank you.
We heard from Cat Victory with respect to this as well, an excellent review of William Smith's life and career. He was a memorable bad guy on the pilot of the Rockford Files. Jim knocks him out, but he has to do so with a sucker punch. Indeed, thank you, Cat Victory. The Rockford Files is one of my favorite shows, and he does have a memorable encounter between Garner and William Smith there. And I'm trying to remember, I think Rockford goes into the men's room, and he sort of coaxes him there, and he kind of lays out some soap on the floor a little bit, so it causes William Smith to slip a little bit or get in that pun. Remember, I'm going to watch that pretty soon because I'm well overdue for a Rockford Files rewatch. So thank you so much, Cat Victory. And recently, we looked at the Twilight Zone episode From Agnes with Love. We heard from Sean Malone, 9711. Hey, this was on MeTV on March 27th of this past year. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did catch that, and thank you, Sean. I want to really circle back to something here because it's so unusual when we cover a particular episode or a particular that guy. Sure enough, after we record, I'll see them that guy on a particular TV show. Perhaps they might have been a guest star on The Waltons or The FBI or Bewitched, some other show that gets circulated on these rerun channels, particularly MTV, which is great nostalgia for all these things there. And I just want to say, I forgot to mention so-and-so in an episode of this. They were fantastic. We just recently covered this episode. I saw some details that I didn't mention on the podcast. So seeing these things circle and get circulated on these rerun channels like MeTV, absolutely, and I can't thank you enough for noticing that it just happened to coincide with line it up. And it's not planned by the professor when some of these episodes drop. It's just, I love how the serendipity, and I hate the word serendipity, but it just so happens to align sometimes with what happens on a episode. Something we'll talk about that guy, and sure enough, you'll see him like within a day or so, if not the day, on an episode of a show on MeTV. It's weird how it works. Yeah, incredible. And we recently looked at the Twilight Zone episode, Nice Place to Visit. We heard from Langbo 9999. He's going to Hotel California, and there's no way to escape. Yes, one of my favorites though, Nice Place to Visit.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Now, we recently spotlighted Donald Sutherland, and we heard from listener emeritus Mac Rocks, 1956. What an extraordinary actor, referring to Donald Sutherland from Clue to MASH to Kelly's Heroes to Hunger Games. I loved him as Oddball in Kelly's Heroes, yes. And you suggested Leslie Parrish. Be well. Thank you so much. I was Silver Away.
Awesome.
Yep. We also recently looked at the Twilight Zone episode Third from the Sun. Cat Factory chimed in. Whoosh! Up over in Whammo. It's time for the Professor Frenzy Show. Catch this episode before the spaceship leaves Earth. Great conversation with myself and the Professor. A Cat Factory chimed in again. It's that Ed Andrews played the Nemesis perfectly in Third from the Sun. Not really a villain, but a constant irritation for William Sturka. A really great episode. Indeed. Great comments there. Yeah. Fantastic. Wow, we got some great comments over some of our recent podcasts. Thank you, each and every one of you. Yes. And with that, we'll move on to our roll call thank yous and shout outs. We'll start with the mascot of our show, Robin at Robin031. Robin, thank you so much for being my inspiration. I love you. Thank you very, very much. It's Two Sleeps at Two Sleeps Music. Thank you for all the plugs on your concert. Well, hey, what's Chris talking about here? Well, Two Sleeps, our buddy Mike, puts on a concert twice a week. You can catch that on your computer or any device where you can access the internet. So on Sunday afternoons at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central, just type in Two Sleeps Music Twitch TV. Click on the link. Once you're there, you'll get involved in an interactive chat. Sign up, get involved by clicking a link in the chat window where you'll have access to a playlist of well over 200 songs. Yes, you can select the set list for these shows. Now, the shows go on just as long as Two Sleeps can get and fulfill all the requests in. Typically, it's about, hour, 90 minutes. Sometimes it might go just about 2 hours, but it's fantastic stuff there. Now, if you want to hear a great rendition of the TV theme to Scooby-Doo, you can hear it here. You can select it. How about some Jerry Reed? How about some Foo Fighters? This is a big, vast range from the Stray Cats to the Monkees. How about some Eagles, or how about some Tom Petty? Great stuff. Also want to say, fantastic fellow in the chat as well is Orbiter, and he's got a great selection of Two Sleep plays, and it's original material as well. Fantastic stuff. Talented musician, good stuff. I can't name all the artists. Like, it goes from Johnny Cash to the Beatles. I mean, how big of a range is that? I want to give a shout out to Kara, aka Karasaurus Rex, who does some things behind the scenes to get the concert going. There's a very inexpensive Patreon. For $1 mere. You can get some original content each month. And you can also catch a additional concert on Tuesday evenings, 9 p.m. Central. No, pardon me, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. There, I'm going to make sure I got that right. And he's also doing a bit of gaming on late Wednesday evening, so please check it out, our friend Two Sleeps. Want to give a plug to Randy over at Randall Andrews 1 over on Twitter, and Frumpy Sketch Artist over on Blue Sky. Puts out talented robotic sketches each and every day. Please go and give him a like. Now, Randy's collected a lot of his sketches, puts them in a coloring book that you can find on Amazon, which we highly endorse here. Not to be outdone, Randy also does a podcast called Soundtrack Alley, where Randy looks to see how film enhances the cinematic experience. And along with that, I look at the movies from a different lens because there's so much history that Randy packs in. So it's a good, well-produced show. Thank you so much for your support, Randy. We really appreciate it. And let's see, it's our friend Clinton, who does a podcast called Coffee and Comics. In that podcast, Clinton will look at a comic book and about the time to drink a cup of coffee. Occasionally, Clinton will have on a guest, ask some fascinating questions. Let's see, Clinton does Days of High Adventure, which is a sword and sorcery podcast as time permits, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Power Hour with John and Lane as time permits, and Fan Film Fridays, where Clinton and I guess we'll look at a fan film, but that's at the Longbucks Crusade feed. But have no fear, because once you're at the Longbucks Crusade feed, you're going to get a whole treasure trove of some outstanding podcasts from the whole Longbucks Crusade gang. We really, really appreciate it. And it's our friend Billy D. Now, Magazines and Monsters is the main feed, and I want to give Billy D some props here, because this past week, my friend, you've provided me a lot of listening material for me while I was at work. And Chris, what are you talking about? Well, check this out. Very recently, Billy D covered the V for Vendetta series with Dr. Ange in a recent episode. He wrapped up the Amicus anthology horror movies with the last one, and he covered the last Amicus movie that was with JJG. Thank you so much. They're going through Marvel Fanfare with Ed and Evan, and they looked at, I think they wrapped up the most recent episode with issue 4 of Marvel Fanfare. He had Mark Gray on, and they looked at a recent House of Secrets comic from the 70s with a Bernie Wrightson cover. And with Kirby, he looked at an issue of Creepy from Warren Publishing. Oh, it was fantastic. Billy D, thank you for providing my listening pleasure while I was at work. I cannot thank you enough for all those fantastic podcasts you did. Keep up the fine work, my friend. I really, really appreciate it. It's our buddy Mac Rocks, listener emeritus, longtime supporter, D.S. May Collins. Thank you, my friend. Chris Hamby, thank you, my friend. Chris Hamby Films is the handle there. The Gringo, thank you so much. Rad Adventures, that's our friends Darren and Ruth at the Rad Adventures with a whole treasure trove podcast there. Bill Beer from the Bat Pod, thank you so much, my friend. Want to give a shout out to Professor Allen at the Relatively Geeky Network and Lily Raven. If I overlooked you, wow, I would really feel bad about that. So let me know at B2 and Bat Books, but are still at the professor himself, not Professor Frenzy, because that way we'll have all the bases covered. Wow, listeners, thank you so much for your support, and please keep listening.
The Professor Frenzy Show!
Professor Frenzy, it's a show. Professor Frenzy Show. Professor Frenzy, it's a show. Professor Frenzy Show.